Hello everybody, this is Solar Tiger with another video. It is August 2018 and today's video is going to be about my rainwater collecting system. Now, during June and July the weather was very hot, into the 30s degrees Celsius, and there was virtually no rain for getting on for 2 months, and the garden needed watering. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you will remember that there was a water butt on this side and a water butt on that side. But as you can see, they are no longer there. Now the water butt that was on this side is now in the front garden, and the water butt that was on that side is now over there. And I have got a new rainwater tank. Now, if I come over here, this water butt, when it was full, it lasted a couple of days when I needed to water the garden during the hot weather in June and July. And after about 2 or 3 days, the water butt was empty, and I was having to use watering cans that I was filling from the tap just around the corner. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than this. I need to have more rainwater storage, and I need to collect rainwater. As you can see, my shed is 10 by 5, and even with the roof on that, I don't collect a lot of rainwater. So I thought that I need to do something different. So I put one water butt over here and connected a rainwater diverter to this downpipe here, and the other water butt is in the front garden, and I connected it to the downpipe in the front. Now you'll see that this downpipe, if I go backwards, this downpipe drains the roof on that side and the main roof up there, and half the roof up there. And when it rains, that collects a lot of water, and this water butt will be full after one medium shower. The water butt will be full, and then the diverter diverts the excess water back down the drain pipe so that the water butt does not overflow. Now, I thought I needed to store more water, and I thought about buying more water butts. And the larger water butts are about £30 to £40 each, and that was quite expensive for the amount of water it held. So I went on YouTube and I did lots of research on rainwater collection systems, and what everyone pretty much does is they use IBC totes. This is a 275 gallon container, and you need at least 4 water butts to hold this much water, and they would be more expensive than one of these. Now, you can buy these on eBay for anywhere from about £10 upwards, but the caveat is that in most cases you'll need to go and collect them. And my issue was that I don't drive, no one in the family drives, and there was no way of collecting. So, after trawling lots and lots of listings on eBay, I managed to find one seller that would deliver them. It came at a cost though. This tote cost £95 including delivery, of which £50 of that charge was the delivery charge. So that was quite expensive, but it was the only way I could get one delivered. So this is a 275 gallon tote, or 1000 litres. This one held a food grade product. You don't want one that held chemicals if you're going to use the water you store in it to water your garden, which I am doing. So the tote is sitting on a plastic grid, and I tried to level the ground as best as possible, but it still leans one way slightly. So also I needed to hide it to make it look good, So what I've used are these panels, and if you think these panels look like my workshop, then you'd be right, since these are the panels, side walls, that actually used to have windows in. So they were the same size as that, and the difference was where the windows were. And since I had to make the shed bigger due to complaints from the neighbours, these two panels were spare. So what I did is I cut off the top part that had the windows in, and I'm using them now to hide my ABC toad. So these are the side panels. There's another one around the other side, and this was one of the roofing panels, because my shed basically looked like this, but there was another section on this side, on that side. So this was one of the roofing panels that I cut down to cover it, and I used lots of wood preservative. And I have gutters on my shed as well, and this pipe goes into the tote via a filter. This is my DIY flower pot filter. Basically it's just a flower pot sat in the hole in the top of the tote, and inside is filter wadding for an aquarium filter pads. If I show you, you can see the black stuff is what has been caught by the filter material. You don't want that to go in your tank, because eventually that will find its way into your pump. So that's what I got. This piece can go onto the end of there. I've took it off so that I can see the flow coming down from the windows upstairs, but I may put this back in the future. On the top of the tote top, on top of the board, I have some pots with strawberry plants in, just to make it look a bit more attractive and somewhere to put my strawberry plants. So that's that. Though most of my water comes from down the downpipe, and the biggest source of water is from the main roof. So what I do is, when this water pot is full, to avoid wasting water going back down the overflow, is I take this hose and put it into the water pot, and come down here. Here is the tank, that's the valve. There's a hose coming out to a T-piece, and that hose there goes into the shed, and I'll show you what happens with that. So if I wanted to pump out the water butt, I connect the hose, connect it to this T-piece, make sure the tank valve is shut, and use the water pump, and I put the outlet hose, that is the outlet hose from the pump, I go that to this, and then I simply take this end of the outlet hose and feed it into there, and I can pump out the water butt to fill up the ABC tank. So if I go back to the tank, okay, so the tank has a valve on it, and I've used a few adapters to connect my hose pipe. So there's an adapter to a barb that I bought on eBay that said fitted a garden hose. I found that the garden hose would not fit onto the barb, so I've used another connector. Now that connector is meant for push-on taps, and it would normally have a clamp around it, but I found that that fitted well onto the barb adapter, and that's how I put that together. And it's just a very tight friction fit, and it works okay. So that's what I've used. So this is my tank. It's standing on a plastic grid. The tank's currently got about 700 litres of water in it, and it's partly hidden by my pear tree. Now from the T there's a feed going into the shed. Now when I'm using the system to water the garden, I disconnect this pipe here, I open the tank valve so the water can go into the shed. This fitting has a water stop on it to prevent the water leaking out from the tank. So that's how that works. It's hidden behind the pear tree, so it's a little bit inconvenient, but it helps to hide it. I've used several coats of wood preservative that matches the shed, and it looks good from the windows, so from the living room it looks okay. So let's go to the inside of the shed. So inside my shed I have a water pump. You can see here this hose comes from outside down there and it comes to my pump. I'll just crouch down here a minute. So this is my water pump. It's a 12 volt DC water pump. It's a surge flow water system pump that I bought off of eBay. It has a flow rate of 12.5 litres per minute, which is 3.5 gallons per minute. It's a 12 volt pump and it has a current rating of 3.9 amps. I'll come back to that in a minute. And it is intermittent duty. It has a pressure switch in it that cuts out when the water pressure in the outlet pipe gets to 35 pounds per square inch. The pump will cut out, and if the pressure falls below 35 psi, the pump cuts back in again. This pump is self-priming and it can run dry without any damage, and it has an automatic thermal overload cutout which resets automatically. Also, when pumping rainwater, it's important that you have a pre-filter. The pump came with a pre-filter. That's to stop particles of dirt and junk and sand and stuff from getting inside the pump and blocking it up. It does mean that every so often you'll need to undo this and clean it. That can be a bit of a pain because it gets stuck on pretty tightly. So this is the inlet from the tank, and it's simply a push-on fitting. It's pretty tight, but on the input you don't need a hose clamp because it's low pressure. On the outlet, this pipe goes out to my garden hose, and this is the high pressure outlet, and a hose clamp is necessary. I didn't have one before. I ran the pump and a minute or so later the hose blew off and water went everywhere. So you need a hose clamp on that, and it needs to be tight. The pump is 12 volts, so there's an on-off switch here and a cord. The cord in my case has a cigarette lighter plug on it with a 5 amp fuse in it. Now the pump is supposed to draw just under 4 amps, but I had a 5 amp fuse in my fuse box and I blew a 5 amp fuse, so you take what you want from that. So I currently have a 7.5 amp fuse up here. There's supposedly a 5 amp fuse in there and it works fine. So I'm running my pump on my 12 volt solar power system that I have in my shed. For this system I have a 50 watt solar panel, a 15 amp MPPT charge controller, and inside the box down here is a 100 amp hour sealed lead acid deep cycle battery. And I have the solar power system, and with the system I can run my pump and I can run my USB fans from my splitter that has a USB power supply built into it. I can run my soldering iron, and I can run various 12 volt devices. I can also run USB devices with this USB power supply splitter thing. I also have a sound system, and I have some lights and a few other things on this system. I also have a power inverter to run AC devices. I used to run my grass strimmer to trim the yard with it, but that's digressing a bit about the rainwater system. So this is the pump. This is an on-demand pump, as I will show you later. So this is the garden, and this is my hose pipe, and on the end of the hose I have a spray gun, and I did say that it's an on-demand water pump, so we just go deal with the water pump a minute. So when you spray, out comes the water, and as you can see, you can spray a good distance with it. So that's the water pump. Now the water pump costs about just under £40 off of eBay, and it's for horticultural stroke agriculture type use. So that's how that works. I can aim water a good, say, 10 foot with this, and that's the water pump. As soon as you let go of the trigger, the pump cuts out, as you could hear. So this is standard 1/2-inch garden hose, and this is the watering system. So it works just fine, and I water my plants with it. As I said, there's a water stop in this connector. The water is turned on at the moment and there's nothing coming out there. So that's the way I've done that. My tank at the moment has about 700 litres in it, as you can see. That's the water level. Now my tank doesn't have an overflow on it at the moment. I'm still working out how I'm going to do that. So the issues I had is that if I drilled into the side, I wouldn't be able to reach in to put the connector in, so that's my issue. But this is the system I've got. So everyone, this is Solar Tiger with my rainwater harvesting system. If you like what you see, you can subscribe to my channel and click like, and until next time, this is Solar Tiger saying thank you for watching. Thank you.